they're ready down there?
Yeah, 30
and are we
seconds.
live?
We're
or is it-
on. We're on now.
Okay. Is it live or is it Memorex?
You're on.
Live, okay. Good evening. It's the Budget Committee's giddy October 15th meeting at 6:30 p.m. And first we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A couple minor things. Dana Glennon is excused because he is ill. And our name tags, oh yeah, Linda's out of town as well. I believe Cliff might be coming upstairs to participate.
She found them.
And, oh, look at that.
Ooh.
Thanks, Matt.
Name tag.
I was going to say that we were going to introduce ourselves, but here come our name plates.
Oh, we have.
See, this is
I think those might,
The purple ones underneath.
yeah, those might have been to slide into the things, but
Okay.
Russ will pass them down. And our first item is the budget law update and review of budget committee responsibilities. And I think there were a couple members who were able to attend the full day workshops. So if you all wanted to share any information you gained from that. I know we also ordered all of these budget law books for us, but I have not been notified that they've arrived. So when I do get notified, you will be notified and you'll be able to pick one up. So I know Russ said he had some things to share.
Yeah, and just trying to find my little note. Couple things. One, they did mention that since we changed our date for the meetings, et cetera, that we should take extra care in feeding of making sure we schedule this out to make sure we make all the dates, and that the LGC apparently is available to us to help make sure the dates measure up. The other couple of things, was we brought up the question, and they had a question and answer period where we submitted cards. And one of the things we submitted was whether the Budget Committee can make up a warrant article on its own, which we discussed a little bit last time. And the answer we got back was yes. It's an elected body. It has the ability to, I mean, they said, number one, anybody via petition can put in a warrant article, but that the Budget Committee, as an elected organization, has the right to create a warrant article if it chooses to. So that was a little different than,
That's news to
I understand.
Mr. Fournier or two as well.
Okay, so
I think it still might end up being petitioned.
it may be worthwhile to validate, but that's, we specifically asked the question and got that answer back. And they also said a petition warrant article must be allowed to be put on the ballot, by the way, regardless of how poorly it's worded or legal review. And that was a comment they made that I think probably referred a little bit to last year's article on Black Bear TIF. I think where several warrant articles, at least one was petitioned, was voted not to be put on.
I think it's communicated.
I think the town council voted to disallow that warrant article for some reason, and the answer to that appears to be they don't have the authority to do that, and that if it's a valid petition, the warrant article, regardless of how poorly it's worded, should be on the ballot.
I think that one thing, Russ, you should acknowledge is that the LGC staff that was present is not necessarily familiar with our charter. And our charter has, underneath state law, the charter has provisions that govern submission of articles to the town that are different than the state. So,
Understand.
but it's not our issue.
Surprisingly,
It's the issue for the
and
council and the
Rosie,
courts.
correct me if I'm wrong, they seem to be pretty familiar with our charter.
Christine Fillmore said she was extremely familiar with our charter. Because when we asked her questions by card to be answered, and also when we just went up and personally asked, she said she was very, very familiar with our charter.
And I'm not saying I know, I'm just reporting back what I heard, but a couple of these things, whether it's through the chair or if you want to have a couple of us speak to Christine and LGC specifically and get back responses that we can rely on. I think at some point, just getting the right answer is all I'm looking for in some of these things. And at the moment, I think one of the issues was the town council is the legislative body, except for the budget, in reading the article of legislative body.
Which means the council can pass the optional state law that was brought up at the last meeting about putting the votes on the warrant articles, the up and down votes. Wasn't that the question last time?
I thought there was
Recommend-
getting the tax
tax
rate
impact.
implication.
The tax
Tax-
impact can be
tax
added by the
impact.
council if the council
Right,
decides.
or
It doesn't have to go to
in-
the town meeting.
No, just like the tallies didn't have to.
Right.
Right.
We were not on the, we didn't have that resolved, and then Becky emailed me after the last meeting, and her information was consistent with what you just said.
That it's a
the
warrant
council's
article, or,
It's the council's decision.
Just for
Okay.
clarification.
Oh, I don't have that. I have conflicting information from Christine, so, okay.
Okay, I just wanted to
The
clarify.
council is the legislative body for Newmarket.
No.
The council can pass any law allowed by state.
Right, but I have that one that says that it has to appear before the voters on about, and then can go on the ballot.
Yeah,
Are you talking about a warrant article?
No, the tax impact.
it has to go before the legislative body, not necessarily the town meeting. If the legislative body is like your city council, like in Portsmouth, it doesn't go to the voters. Or in Durham, where they have a town council
Well,
that can pass zoning ordinances, any ordinance. Yeah, the school is different.
My son got it. Okay, so the.
Can I ask a quick, just for clarification? So Russ, the question you asked at the the LGC
Right.
seminar was if the town council wants to include the tax implication or cost of a warrant article and put it on the ballot, it can include the tax ramification, the cost?
we didn't ask that specific question.
So what was I
question-
just wondered, what was the question that was asked?
One was, we asked specifically whether the Budget Committee can put a warrant article out on its own, and the answer was yes. We also asked to explain the legislative body, because that was confusing, and they came back and said that the town council was the legislative body, except for where there is an official Budget Committee under RSA 32. Then RSA 32 gives the Budget Committee as a legislative body for the budget. Right? That's the way I walked out of that. Who puts on,
So what was the part about the tax ramification?
no, I think Brian,
I
Oh.
brought that up because if the council is a legislative body, which it is,
Yeah.
then the legislative body by state law is the one who changes, that makes that decision.
Okay, but that's conflicting when Alan and I were there. I wrote specifically down under definitions, legislative body, town meeting, school district meeting, village district meeting, et cetera, i.e. voters.
Right. The difference is
Governing
Newmarket
body.
has the charter, which changes, we're kind of, this is,
We're a hybrid.
Steve is really familiar, because apparently he's been reviewing the charter in detail to figure out where we're inconsistently operating. But because of the charter, we're a hybrid form of government that's not clearly, that they're not going to address in a workshop, because it's us, Durham, and a couple other towns that have this
Okay.
weird situation. Maybe even Somersworth.
Yeah.
Oh, you're mayor's.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you helped out.
The situation is the chair's correct on this one. What you're reading and what they would say is the legislative body, and you're correct in town form of government with town meeting or SB2, the town meeting voters and the voters are the legislative body. Under a council, and that actually applies to the school district.
Right, and that's what.
That
I've
is the
written here, and
school.
that's what Christine said.
Take the school aside. Newmarket operates under the council form of government. And with a charter. So the only situation where the legislative body or the voters are the budget, as Russ said. Every other item is voted on by the council. Planning ordinances, zoning ordinances, the situation with the tax impact would go before the council. The council is the legislative body in that situation. So it's basically any laws except the budget, the council votes on. It's very similar, Durham, Derry, Bedford, Hooksett, a number of those communities, that's the same situation.
And on the warrant article, you seem to,
I'm going to talk to Christine tomorrow, if she was the attorney you talked to. And I just want clarification, because I've always been told selectmen boards, in that situation, are the only ones who can propose warrant articles,
except by a petition, right?
except by petition. And that would be the same with council form when it comes to budgetary items. Again, I've got to review the charter, but I'm assuming there'd be a petition aspect of that to submit a warrant article. But other than that, I've never heard of a because the municipal budget committee is, by traditional law, is a subcommittee of the town meeting or the deliberative session. And the duties of the budget committee is to review the budget and make recommendations to the voters after the council submits it to them or the school board submits it to them. The governing or the policy-making boards are the school boards and the council, who would be submitting the warrant articles. So that's why I'm going to talk with Christine tomorrow to get clarification. What I'll do is I'll outline my question, have her put it in writing, and get it back to the budget committee so you can see her answer.
That'd be great. And,
appreciate
yeah, I just,
'Cause that's, yeah, I've never heard
every
such a
time we
thing.
ask a question,
Yep.
we get a slightly different
No,
spin.
I'll have it in writing too, so you guys can see that.
Gary, and then I saw Jack's hand.
So just for clarification, the council wants to, because we've been given conflicted information in the past. Council has a warrant article that we're putting forward, we vote on it, blah, blah, blah. And now we want to include the tax ramification, so when the people vote, they know what it is going to add to the tax rate. We can vote to do that at the council level. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, my understanding is that they recently amended state law to allow that impact in there.
Okay, so just in
Yep.
closing my circle, does the same apply to warrant articles for the school?
No,
Okay, so how does that work? Would the
Town
school
meeting.
board, excuse me?
town meeting, the school meeting would have to vote on that. Because the school, in the school form of government,
Yeah.
the legislative body is the school meeting. It's not the school board.
Right. Okay.
So that's the
They
difference.
would submit a warrant article at this March town meeting, school meeting.
Yeah, it would.
Simplifying this in the future would be a
Okay.
good idea.
So that was, just in closing, so I want to just be really crystal clear, because I think that's the direction we were sort of talking about going this year, was to put out a warrant article to allow the town to include that, because a lot of people have complained to me, before I was on the council and subsequent to being on the council, that they'd like to know what the actual implication is, and, the newspapers sort of have it, and, you can put it on the website, but you can't really put it on the warrant article, and when people are there to vote, they can't really relate to that. So if we have that in a warrant article this coming election in March, to vote, to be able to.
Let me
yeah.
stop right there. The council can do that.
I
at
know
their
they can do
meeting.
it now.
But the school would do it in March, correct?
And if the school doesn't march, the whole town votes, and if the town votes to allow for that, then going forward, then any warrant articles by either, well, we know the council could do it for the town,
Yeah.
but the town and the school would then be on the same page, and,
Yep.
and the tax implication would be included, correct?
Until such time, but again, since it would be in March, this wouldn't take effect until fiscal year 15 budget
For the school.
for the school. The
Okay.
town could do it with the council vote at the next meeting. It would be for fiscal year 14 budget.
It
School
wouldn't be
can't-
14?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be 14 if it passed this year?
No, because at the same meeting, you're voting on the 14 budget for the school.
The 13, 14.
Oh.
Because of the
Yeah.
overlap.
All right, okay.
How,
Jack.
when we went through,
Jack's
oh,
next.
sorry.
I just wanted to say I was on the Charter Commission, year 2000. That seemed a long time ago. I was only 18. But anyway, and it's very simple. When they say that the council is the legislative body, we were hand in hand with the State Administrative Association, no, the government, excuse me. There's somebody down here all the time. I don't know if you were that attendant, but so that there's nothing that would radically change that impinges upon anybody's how they could petition and so forth. That's still in there, as a matter of fact. There's an article in the charter that says you can petition just about anything you want. And because through the council, that's all. But it's a much more accurate, I think, situation than what we had before with the selectmen. And because I was only on 2 or 3 selectmen boards, but it's been there for 20 years now. It's worked out pretty good, so. There's not too much in question, but you should question something if you don't understand it, or you don't have a copy of it. There's charters, if anybody that doesn't have any, I'm sure everybody here has one. And if you don't, if somebody asks you for one, you can just stop in the office down the hall and get one.
Yeah,
And
that's
you get the
It's
answers
also
to
on the
everything.
website.
okay. That's not, that wasn't,
Okay.
I get it.
Roseanne? And then
I
saw
remember
Russell.
distinctly that question at the conference, and it was stated that the Budget Committee can formulate their own warrant articles.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up on this point, even though I understand that the voting has to be done in 2 separate ways to get the the implication to the tax rate, what they also said was that a warrant article should be just what people are voting on, and the explanations that sometimes get crammed into warrant articles really shouldn't be there. But there can be a separate explanation sheet developed by whoever is developing it to be handed out. Last but not least, if a sheet like that was going to be handed out, you could put the tax rate impacts on that sheet. You just can't have them in the warrant article itself. So if the Budget Committee chose to do that at the end of the cycle by putting out some type of information sheet, we could put out a supplement to the warrant articles that would say, here are what the tax impacts are. It's not officially part of the warrant article, but for your information, voters, this is what the impacts are,
And
which I think may be a useful thing to do.
But historically, it's been done.
Yeah,
It's not,
Yeah.
it's not been hidden. I mean, I recall at the deliberative session, the articles had the actual tax rate impact
Huh.
and maybe explanatory
Yeah.
information. Then it got just stripped off for the actual ballot.
I was going to say exactly that, but I also wanted to see if Roseanne, did you say can or cannot? Budget Committee can or can?
They
Can. Okay.
Yeah, they can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that'll be one of those things you'll ask her
I
about.
will ask Christine in the morning.
And also, Steve, is there a state RSA that allows a town to change the definition from the state RSA legislative body, meaning the voters, to our charter? Is there a law that allows that?
And I guess I gotta ask one more question on that. Are you saying for the town side or for the school side?
Just for the town side to.
RSA, Chapter 49 is the town charter form of government
Okay.
chapter. And it outlines exactly what we can adopt as a town and the council form of government. New Hampshire is not what they refer to as a home rule
Home rule
state.
state.
We can only pass what laws the state allows us to, and especially when it comes, well, the Constitution says we're a home rule because it allows us to pick which form of government we want. There are forms that we can pick. And Newmarket follows and I can't remember, I think it's 49B or C, one or the other, that is the town council form of government. And it's specific in there. But no, the only way to go back to having the town meeting to be the legislative body is to eliminate the charter.
Is to eliminate the.
Would go back to the
Now
select
that you
board.
mention, I think I remember that statute stating that you can have the legislative body as the council. Yeah.
It's it has to be the council.
Yeah,
Under the charter form of government, it has to be the council.
yeah. I remember that. Okay.
And if you were checking, I hope you would check on the issue about whether a warrant article is brought up either by petition or someone else, whether it has to go forward if it's a legal warrant article and can't be voted.
And
to
again,
be-
that would be something I have to check with the charter also. You can usually, even if it's allowed to go on the warrant, it may be, even if it passes, it could be disallowed because of legality. You could have a warrant article that says, I want to make Councillor Levy King of England.
How about
It can-
Newmarket?
And it goes forward, and it passes, but it's not legal. And it could be, and it's anything like that. You could have
Yeah.
certain forms, and I've dealt with it many
I would
times.
totally agree with the
Yeah.
legality. It's just last year we had a petition warrant article that was disallowed to be put on the ballot by the town.
And that's what I'd have to look at our charter, what the charter says, if the council has that authority. But
And I just have to say, I mean, I understand the concern, some of you might have signed that, but it's not a budget committee issue about whether or not that was proper. I only think it would be important if we bring up an article after we get the answer that says we can, and then it doesn't get on there, then I think it becomes our issue. And if the committee feels differently, I mean, I think that's out of our realm. I think individually, that can be addressed to the council directly.
Well, I think that's where the question was coming from, is going forward.
Yeah.
If the budget can be, it's that clarification is.
Right, but it is about petition one, that's why
Well,
it's
Right,
different.
I think that's what I took it as being, not that we're going back.
The only question I would have on that, Brian, is since the warrant articles are related to the budget,
That one was about a TIF district. I mean, the budget implication was minimal because there was no expenditures or anything. We
well,
wouldn't
it
have,
was taking revenues out of the
right,
tip.
but
I-
we
I
wouldn't have been
understand.
able to vote on it even if it was on.
Just not to overly convolute, this is actually interesting. So now, there's a warrant article hypothetically relating to upgrading the water system. Okay? Whether it's well or sewer, right? And I understand it may not be initiated here, but, and I'll be brief with it, but it does beg to ask the question. Now there's a tax ramification, theoretically only to the users, okay? So if that was put on a warrant article, the tax ramification, would it, when they're determining how much it's gonna cost, would they be calculating only the cost to the users? So when people are voting, because, we all vote on that, we don't have a water district, et cetera, so
And you're right, and that would be a question I would have, but my first thought of that, it would, if it, on a town warrant, it would have no impact because it's not on the tax rate. It's on the water rates.
So they wouldn't, so
that's
that
the-
wouldn't
it
even be
would say
part
no
of it.
impact.
It would just say there's no impact.
Okay.
Right.
I just, well,
Unless-
it's gonna have an
unless-
impact on
it's
some
and-
people.
Right, it will, but it does not have an impact on the tax rate. Right.
All
I
right.
think Jack had a comment.
Thanks.
It's just as simple as if you were doing something between the town and/or the school, except in a little different vein. There's approximately, I don't know, it's close to 2,000 people on the lines now, and for years and years, there was about 1,400 of them. And when they say they're going up X number of dollars on both the water and the sewer, which they just recently did, by the way, which really made me happy, because of the number of people that are now going on the lines, I think there should have been something, well, I'm not gonna get political that way. But the point is, yes, the users are taking full boat for the whole bond issue. And that's not fair. There's another reason. I think we should have a commission, and I think you should be on it.
I think you should direct your issues to the chair or the town administrator.
But the budget committee does have responsibility for recommending the budget of the water and sewer. So even though
I only brought it up because
we
it's
don't
gonna
create
impact
the
people.
rates,
What's that?
we at the end, that's one of the pieces of the puzzle outside the town budget that we have to go through, we have to make a recommendation on. And then based on what we recommend is approved, that's what creates the water rates. Right, and the sewer rates.
Well,
It's the users.
Doesn't,
Yeah,
it all it does is authorize how much money can be spent.
but
The
that's,
water rates could be independent of that because they could get a grant for $1 million, or someone could give them money.
That's true, yeah.
All it does is authorize how much gets spent. There's assumptions in the revenue side about the water rates and how much money is gonna get brought in. But we're not, all it is authorizing the expenditure when we recommend a budget and it gets passed. So, if the feds
So
pull
we
out all their
can-
money on everything and the state does, then the tax rate's gonna quadruple.
so when we recommend, we're only recommending, we go through the revenue to find out,
To make sure we think it's realistic,
yeah,
or,
but what we're recommending is only the expense side of the equation.
the authority to spend.
Raise and appropriate.
Okay. Less muddled? You know the questions we want answers on? Okay. Thank you, Steve. I think we're ready to go on to the school. Dr. Hayes is here, and his business manager was out at a conference all last week. But I would like to say that if you guys can make this a regular habit, so it's not, doesn't seem like a surprise to get
I
the
agree.
monthly reports.
Yeah.
Same with the town end. I know you're fresh, so we'll let you off the hook.
Should be standard, yeah. I'll meet with her tomorrow
know-
on that.
I don't necessarily feel like I need 109 pages, which is what we got from the town. I honestly think like you know, like 2 pages, which is like department totals
Okay,
or
some,
something that makes
some more
more
summative.
at this point. Maybe when we get
Yeah.
to the full-on process, maybe, but if the committee feels differently, I just realistically, I'm not gonna look at it when it's that many pages.
Yep.
Until we're on to the,
But at least we're arguing pages and not having
Oh, yeah.
any pages.
No, no,
So
no, no.
it's a progress, Steve.
and, you know, the best thing would be for her to email it on to everybody at once, so in case I'm away or ignoring emails,
Or if she's gonna be out of town.
or if she's gonna be out, yeah.
I mean,
And I think that by now, she has the full list
Yeah, I
of
think so.
committee members. But I know you don't have a report to give us, but is there anything of significance for the first quarter of the year that you think should be shared at this point?
Not really. It's been pretty typical opening of schools and thankfully, no big surprises. So,
Are you on track budget-wise?
Yes.
If you were to take the whole budget and break it down to the
Yes.
first quarter, are we on track? with
Sure we
what-
are.
With this
Yes.
year's budget?
yeah, but again, it's very early in the
Understood.
season, but
So
yes.
far, so
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Rush.
Thank you, by the way, for the tour in the school, which I know several of us were on.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple, I looked at the budget calendar, and I'm not an expert in this, so Brian, for you, and in looking at this, it looked like you were going to provide copies of the budget before Thanksgiving,
That's our goal, yes.
and that we would start to review it then, but that warrant articles, which also need to be reviewed by the Budget Committee, wouldn't be posted until January 8th or something like that, which seems to be pretty tight in meeting the dates.
Yeah.
So one of the concerns in just looking at the calendars, if we have to review and make recommendations on the warrant articles, that those be prepared in time so that we can get through that process by early December, rather than pushing it up.
I think that makes sense. I think that January date might be more the far end deadline
To post it.
of when we have to complete our work and post it. So I agree with you. The goal ought to be sometime in December.
Well, it just said December 6th, you'd be looking at drafts at the
Right.
school board meeting, and I think
Right.
we need
So
to
then we'll,
tighten that up unless we want to have
Yeah, I
Christmas
agree.
meetings. And the other thing I walked away with was that you were talking, and I don't know if that has warrant article or budget implications with Durham.
Yes.
And the long-term plan, is that going to be part of what's rolled into the warrant articles this year?
I expect something related to that, but the difficulty is that the people who control the timeline are the Oyster River folks, because they're the ones that are doing a program analysis and trying to determine when a tuition agreement could begin, whether they really want to have an arrangement with Newmarket, variety of other things. What might the tuition rate be? But I know the conversation I've had with the superintendent, we're both of a mind that we do want to bring it to some final point and be able to make decisions in March. That has certainly been our aim. We haven't had a
Those of you
meeting.
who weren't there, Jim had told us at the walk-around of the schools that he was talking with Durham for, I think, the 6th to the 12th grade as the ends of that process.
Possibly. It may only be 9 through 12, but it really is open to the entire secondary string
And
of
that he had
grades.
hoped he would have some general thoughts and recommendations by December. And again, I think that sort of puts us in that tight time frame type of.
So is the goal to have something that voters would vote on in March, or to know something in March? Because then you're looking at another year, which doesn't seem
Something to
feasible.
vote on in March.
So we would have something by December-ish in order
That's-
for it to be a warrant article.
That's certainly the hope. But again, Oyster River are the ones who really control will we be at that point. But so far, they've been moving, I think, and with good speed on this, because they're of the same mind.
But January 28th is a good date. I mean, that's the drop-dead date where everything we've had town meetings, deliberative sessions, and by the
For what date?
28th.
The liver session's in February.
After, okay, so, but we have to post the warrant articles by January 28th? but
I don't have that in front of me because I forgot to bring it, but that, I know,
If you need, I got a copy just in case.
there's a date by which the school board has to propose articles, then there's a couple weeks for petition ones, and then there's a final date for posting.
Right.
And that sounds consistent.
Yeah.
So, just so, we kind of we kind of just smushed my agenda, so.
Jumped around here.
There was an item called school facilities and discussions with Oyster River School District, which is after union negotiations, which is after
Okay,
where we just
sorry.
started.
And I know he
So if we
jumped.
want, we can just go on to the
Always stay
school
with
since
that.
we're there, and then we'll go
Yeah.
back to unions. But let's try to,
Stay
I do put some thought into
I
this.
apologize.
It's okay. Roseanne, and then I see a couple more hands.
A question, is anyone else, who's discussing other than yourself with Oyster River?
Yeah, we have a meeting next week on the 22nd, and the representatives from the school board will be Meg Looney-Moore, Chet Jablonski, myself, and then the principal and assistant principal of the junior-senior high school. So
We'll be meeting
the
here?
five
or
of us, we're meeting actually in Durham at their SAU
Durham? And
office.
is that open to the public?
No, no, it's not.
Why not? Do you
Well,
know?
it's just it's really not a posted meeting. It's
How many
it's
members of the school board are going to be there?
2. And I'm not sure how much will come out of that, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll certainly will report back, but I know it's just really the first formal meeting that we've had. But, pardon me?
Tuesday?
The 22nd, whatever date that is, whatever day of the week that is, I don't remember.
Monday.
Monday.
And also, when we get our annual report, will we have the last 2 years of the fiscal numbers for special ed? Annual report's supposed to have the previous 2 years spent with special ed.
On the budget, you mean? Or,
Are we getting a annual report from you? Is that what you were talking about earlier, Brian?
no.
The monthly report you were talking about?
I was talking about getting the monthly financial report automatically
Right.
distributed to us, so.
Okay, so then I should rephrase to ask, is there do you have your annual report in any way, shape, or form ready with the numbers for the last 2 years?
I would think we can produce that. I
Yeah.
don't think that's the report that Brian had asked for, though.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I wanted to
You've
clarify.
got a specific
we're
state
back
law
to A.
referenced. Are you looking at
Yeah, and I was
something?
wondering if we could get that information the last 2 fiscal years under 3211.
Is that a report to the state agencies or to, because it doesn't sound like it's one to us. It might help him to know, oh, you're looking for the A75 report or the.
Brian, if I can, this Thursday, oh my Lord, this Thursday, time is short, but I expect to be presenting to the school board our initial FY14 budget proposal. And in there, we do have not only what's proposed, but the previous 2 years' experience. So you'll see on
Good.
every account what's been the history of that
Are
account.
we in the new software?
No, we're not.
Are we, new software?
All right.
We decided it made a lot more sense to wait until January 1st.
Oh, that's right. You told us that in August, I
Yeah.
forgot. All right, so I think Gary and then Judy, or Judy and Gary.
I was just going to ask, are there a lot of capital improvements? No, I'm not talking about to the building, I probably should rephrase it, but like computer system upgrades and that type of thing. Is any of that happening right now at the school?
We have done a great,
Significant,
Yeah.
long-term expense, upgrades, things like that?
for this year, we've already done that work. We began it early in the summer, and it carried through. But we've pretty much completed putting in new servers, new network operating systems, and expanded bandwidth. And so now the big effort is on re-imaging all of the computers so that they work with one another. But there's nothing new on the horizon for this year beyond that.
The only reason I'm asking just is because since you're in quasi-negotiations, it sounds like, and I don't know what the timeline is on that, but, obviously, depending upon how this thing plays out, we probably should, try to keep things in check
Right.
as far as expenses, just so it's not
Aye.
wasted.
It's a very tight budget. I don't disagree with you there.
Okay, thank you.
Judy?
Yeah, at the very end of our conversations last year, you brought it up, and it was a sort of a little bit of a surprise. There was an additional $450,000 that you had anticipated getting from federal funds. I'm just wondering whether that money came through.
Boy, that doesn't sound familiar to me. Additional 450,000
In a grant money that you were, and so we increased your bottom line by $450,000. And Joan, was it
familiar?
Joan? Yeah,
What was it
presented
for,
that to
Judy?
us. It was a federal grant. I'm not sure what it was, but I just want to, make sure that want to know whether it came through or not.
Well, pretty much the only federal grants that we get are entitlement grants, primarily special education, but title.
I believe it was
Title I.
federal, but it was an additional $450,000.
Yeah.
And
We
Joan
do
said
get
if
the
you did
entitlement
not
grants.
receive it, that you would return that amount to the taxpayer.
I think that it might have been, my memory is that it might have been that you all were expecting less money than historically, but you got the level that was historically provided.
Yes.
So it's
That
not
we
on
did.
top of what was.
Yeah, I don't
think it
was new money.
Well,
But-
anyway, at the end of the
I think it'll
day,
show it on the
we
thing.
increased what we had recommended for the school by an additional $450,000. Yeah.
And I remember explicitly you, Brian, stating that you too wanted to ask that question in this cycle to make
Yeah.
sure that it was done the way it was going,
Yeah.
that it was done the way it was going to be explained. You had great concerns about it too. I remember that distinctly.
I think I just want to make sure that
Yeah, well, should we
when
just
we
look
get the
into
budget
it?
proposal, we get
Right.
the revenue sources that are not property taxes. And that was harder to come by last year than maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's part of our understanding of the tax impact and is making sure that the estimates for the revenue on the school or town side are fair. Because, there were some mistakes in the past, the school's not, town side, there were some overestimates or optimism.
Yeah, it's just something that I think we need to follow.
Is there a timing issue that says we don't find out?
Oh,
the
they never
actual-
tell you before we adopt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because the state passes its budget July 31st, well, June 30th at the latest.
Okay.
We've voted in March.
So if for some reason we budget special ed, which I understand we have to take care of, and cafeteria, and both of those dry up completely,
Yeah.
okay, then the tax rate would go up another $1.5 million because we're asking people to vote on revenue that we're not sure is coming in.
There's also, I think, the option that the school board can go to, school board can reduce costs, and then we can petition DRA not to make the tax rate to raise the whole appropriation. But basically, again, we're authorizing the amount of money to be spent. If those non-property tax sources are lower or higher, it affects the amount of money to be raised by property taxes.
Right, and from what I've been reading, that's getting to be a growing concern, that funding for a lot of things is either being pushed back to the town or not being as much. So even if we approve the same budget amount, we could end up having a significant tax increase if we don't get the funding.
Good. Amy?
Frightening.
Does it answer the question at all when we got to the end of this fiscal year and we saw the reports from the SAU? It said, okay, here's what we had in the budget and here's where we ended. That was all revenue and all expenses. So does that inherently answer your question?
no, because this was for this current fiscal year.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah,
Couple of things. One, I wanted to say, we had something very similar to that happen last year where the state was going to not fund the retirement to the level that they usually did or something. So remember, we made several cuts to balance that. So it's something we're definitely used to dealing with, not getting as much money as the state or the Fed says that they're going to give us and planning accordingly. So, it's, it's not uncommon, not unheard of, and we deal with it, that's for sure. But the other thing I wanted to say too is if talking about the discussions with Durham, with Oyster River, we certainly, whether we hear in time or not from Oyster River, we certainly could put out a kind of feeler warrant article like we did with Epping, saying, would the town be interested in our pursuing some kind of an arrangement with Oyster River School District. We certainly can do that, whether we hear from them or not, and I'm inclined to recommend that we do that at the school board level, so that's something that I'm certainly going to bring forward, and I don't see why it wouldn't hurt us to get that on our warrants this year regardless, so.
Quick question.
Roseanne?
Even though those, I understand the legality of it, there's only school board members on that committee to negotiate. But in light of the fact that there are only school board members on there, is there any way that it could be open to the public? Because
Why? Just to help, I mean,
just to eliminate any questions. I mean, you know, it's a school board. School board is a patron of the schools, and they want the school and so forth and so on, just so we know what's going on the other side, just so there's no questions. It would be good. I don't know if you could ask Durham if they could open it to the public.
Yeah, it'd really be their decision. It's at their site, so. But typically it's not, but it's not meant to be anything secretive at all. It's just it's a small office. There's not a whole lot of room in there. But in any case,
They have other rooms that
I
they
can speak
could
with
move
them.
it to, but I would really
It's a matter of
appreciate it.
transparency.
Like an at-large
No,
member, is that what
but,
you mean?
but I gotta speak for reality here about, I mean, you gotta have to have discussions that, it's a negotiation. There's administrative meetings all the time that happen that
Right.
the public is not allowed to see because so I hear you, Roseanne, but you have to have a level of trust that I'm not hearing about the school board trying to look into this fully. And I think they are. I've talked with people in Durham, and it's being considered. Durham is taking their time figuring out their capacity needs.
And would.
But I personally,
Right.
I think it's a great idea. I would like to be
Yeah.
able to have better facilities, bigger facilities, and more opportunities
Yeah,
in a good school
absolutely.
district. So,
And would
but maybe
Durham-
what the school should do is have a forum where they allow the public in Newmarket to provide them input. So that they know if this is an opportunity, what are the things that are a big problem or not. I know you have a school facilities meeting next week, but there should be concurrent discussions. Because if you go to March without Oyster River being fully analyzed and understood by the public, nothing's gonna happen.
And if Durham decides to accept us, does Durham have to have a vote on it as well, or is they just decide?
Sure,
So
sure.
they have to
Oh,
have
yeah,
a vote on it
everything
there
has
as
to
well?
come back to the voters, and
Okay,
I agree with
all
you.
right.
Once we have something of real substance to bring back, I think we should have our own public debate here in Newmarket. But
Right,
right
but
now,
the
it's
question-
really in their court.
I didn't mean to get everybody wild up. Drew?
Individual concerns could be addressed to school board members who are said to be attending the meeting or to
Right.
Dr. Hayes as well.
Good idea. Yep.
Well, and it gets back to the budget schedule.
Trying to help direct traffic.
No, I didn't want to say
Okay,
something.
Ellen and then Russ, 'cause Ellen hasn't spoken yet.
I want to reiterate the idea of a forum, and I know you probably want to wait at this point, but, and I haven't been following all the meetings for the school board, so, and I assume other people haven't either, but it seems like it's been a long time since we voted in March, and we had some pretty momentous votes, I think, at that point, but, and there's been information that you're in discussions with Durham, but it seems like it would be helpful to have some forums more often with the public to share information about what you're up to in all aspects of the school and get input from the public. Because we voted, but we voted on some options and some opportunities. And I think more communication, we talked about this on the town side too, of somehow trying to just really increase communication among people and get feedback more frequently than I think we've had the opportunity.
And I think you'll see it really ratchet up. Since then to now, there's been a lot of work that's been done that's kind of more groundwork. That's really not something able to report. It was really bringing us to a place in time. And for us, that's what next week really is. There's a facilities committee meeting next week. We are finally, all of that time was building towards getting cost estimates for the 2 construction projects, the addition renovation of the existing building, or building a new building, a facility across the street. And we'll have those cost estimates. I hope to have them before the before the weekend. They're extremely detailed, plus some of the designs have changed slightly, and so there are a lot of implications that come out of the design as well. So I think things are going to be not just one meeting, but multiple meetings on these issues and then on Oyster River as that information comes out as well. But there wasn't a real good reason to meet. I get your point, but there really wasn't anything I could put on.
And to Ellen's point, and I agreed, because the calendar is so different this year. I mean, last year, everybody was running around like crazy trying to figure out what we did to each other. But this year, assuming your budget calendar is correct, it's saying warrant articles and the budgets have to be wrapped up by January 28th, give or take, in order to then have the deliberative sessions between then and then the vote in March. So if you're going to be seeking any input or giving an update to anybody who wants to come about either the construction cost estimates or tuitioning and where that is and getting public input, you'd like to do that well in advance of January 28th. So if they're, and probably more likely in early December, if you sort of take that chunk of 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, saying, ain't a lot of people going to be happy with having meetings then.
No, I understand. I understand.
Time of year.
So to your point, yeah, I think in the next month or so, it'd be nice to see who attends and open up that door.
Okay, union negotiations, I think.
Yep.
Is
Of course, we have them going on two fronts. There's a health insurance advisory committee. I consider that negotiations. And I believe they have a meeting next week. Am I right?
Tomorrow, actually.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay, good. All right. I got my weeks wrong. But they have, I think, had a productive session so far. Have reviewed proposals. I think I can at least say that, and we still don't have a recommendation from them.
This
But
is
that's
the
their,
union work representatives with the school reviewing insurance proposals, or the school with the town?
this is school and teachers association. Because that's something that our collective bargaining agreement mandates.
Right,
we've
yeah.
got to do.
If you're gonna, yeah.
So that's where that stands. So hopefully we may get even a recommendation out of the committee tomorrow. I'm hopeful that happens, because that then plays into the bigger picture, which is the collective bargaining agreement that we're also negotiating. And we've had 2 sessions already. We have another one coming up later this week. And the best I can tell you so far, I think they've been cordial. I think they've been productive. I think we're all optimistic that we'll avoid what we ran into last year, and that we can come to some agreement, hopefully before December even. So far, so good.
Sure. Russ and then Roseanne?
Regardless of how well that goes, in some stuff I've been sent, I guess, by LGC or other places, on more pension costs being pushed down to the local level,
Has been.
about 25%, give or take, on the teacher
Yeah,
side.
and in our budget proposal, that translates right now to $215,000 more.
So if you guys are unaware, there's like 3 different percentages that are going up, but the range is as low as 19% for the police, why they're the lowest, up to a 25% or 26% increase for teachers. Something like that. So another embedded, we used to get funding and it's no longer there. And that's a pretty sizable piece of change.
It certainly is.
Now, is that just for the teachers, or does that have the same effect?
That's the district budget. That's everybody, even, classified employees, different rates, I think, but
Okay.
but it's a percentage of salaries, and the percentage went up considerably.
Roseanne?
The warrant articles on the collective bargaining specific to the dollar amount that it will cost?
Yes,
It is.
it would be. And you'd have to, and we'd also have to lay out all the years. Let's say it were a 3 or a 4-year contract. We'd have to show the impact over every one of those years.
Was the decision that, was it Carol, the farmer business?
Joan.
Joan Laporta.
Yes?
Were the calculations that Joan looked into the contract and decided that those bonuses were cumulative instead of just yearly? The bonuses given to the teachers.
Pay. It's yeah,
additional-
additional pay, not
Bonus.
For
bonuses.
people beyond step 15,
Right.
yes.
I don't
I
think
don't-
Joan
That was-
looked into that. I think
Joan didn't make that determination.
Found it out.
That actually, because that benefit began, I think, in 2007.
bring my glasses.
It was in the second year. The administrators at that point, in the second year, made that interpretation, and that's what has followed
Was
through the
that,
years.
because I know that's a substantial amount of money, isn't that close to $294,000 a year, if I remember correctly?
It's over 200.
Yeah, it's over 200 now. I think it's probably around $220,000 by itself.
Okay. So if that's a large amount. Was that dollar amount discussed in any way, shape, or form in the contract? Because if it wasn't, I'm not sure.
There's language in the contract and past practice that supports that amount. So the only way,
I think the question that I'm hearing is that, did the presentation of the cost of the contract accurately reflect that cost?
Thank you.
I see.
I don't believe it
Which I
did.
don't think these guys can answer.
Yeah, because,
And I'm not sure it matters, because the warrant article didn't actually tell you the cost, because it doesn't
Yeah.
have to.
Just tells you a total amount,
It
as
tells
I
you the
recall.
first year.
right, but according to, some of the new information I got, that if the dollar amount isn't in the appropriation and with collective bargaining, then you can't just go ahead and include it at a later date. And does that have anything to do with the Sanborn decision that came down at all with the evergreen clause?
No, it has, we're not an evergreen collective bargaining
Anymore,
agreement.
because they-
It's not us. We never were,
If we were evergreen, that number would be higher, because it would still be building.
right?
Because the contract is frozen as of the last year of the last year. It was,
Okay. And
right, it's
does,
still the same numbers unless you
Exactly.
change your educational
and
experience.
does anyone have the authority, is there any state law that we can change the collective bargaining agreement from, 4 years ago now? Because in my estimation, if any union knows that because of the economy and situations and so forth, that no matter how good negotiators they have at the table, they're not going to get a pay increase, they're not going to get this, that, or the other thing. They actually are better off sticking with their last contract. And that's not fair to the municipality. Is there any way that after so many years of them not negotiating to get a new contract in fear of that anyone can do anything about it?
You have to negotiate it. There's not another way.
So there's
With this
no
vote,
automatic retro or anything like that.
You can just keep negotiating for,
Okay, thank you.
You welcome.
Any more questions? Obviously, I was just looking to, my whole goal was just to see if there's any news about an agreement or anything, but you can't get into
Say that again?
details, so. My whole goal was just to see if there is an agreement, but obviously you can't get into details because it's negotiations, so.
No, we still have work to do.
Did you want to provide an overview of the findings from that health insurance report that you gave us after the last meeting?
Well, only that, one of the questions that I've heard over the 2 years plus that I've been here has been around, is there a benefit to pooling town and school employees into one group, and then hopefully that creates some financial savings. And the information that I provided was a report that was done on that back almost a year ago. And it's pretty clear when you look at the data that the answer to that question is no. It's not a benefit to either group to join forces. So that's all that does, is hopefully put in writing and put to rest that question.
Anybody have any questions?
The only one I had is, and it's not an area that I've looked at or understand, it was just a question I asked last time, is that there are still people on the efficiency committee who I thought were working on this as one of the possibilities with you guys that seem to disagree still, that combining insurance, I didn't know the efficiency committee is supposed to speak to that, I don't know if there's.
I'm not on it anymore.
Here's what I understand, because I think way back when, I think it started out as this pooling concept, but I don't think that's what they're looking at now. What I believe that they think has value is that the employee groups on the town and the school side have the same plans, that they have the same deductibles, the same, and so I think, I take from their discussions, that's their goal. But it's not the idea of the pooling, but it's really that, and I know the town has had a presentation to town council about a high deductible plan, and I think the efficiencies committee might, if they think that's their best option, then they might like to see the school district move to that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know the details, I just love to have everybody who's working on the same thing agree on the same words and the same structure, or clearly agree to disagree, so that we can understand what the differences are. The one that says no, but yes, is just confusing, and we as a group, much less me as an individual, like to make as intelligent decisions as I can. I just like to straighten some of this stuff out within the next 2 months.
The brokers who worked for both the town and then the efficiency committee, we engaged them to work for our health advisory committee. So we have the same people involved.
But, Brian, can I just say one?
Linda, sure.
But I hear what you're saying, and in fact, I originally was on the efficiencies committee, and I think that there was some, I think that some of us did hear things a little bit differently, because I originally thought that really what a few folks on the efficiency committee were kind of pushing was, let's combine the town and the school into one pool and see what kind of rates we can get for insurance. So, so I kind of ran, even though I left the efficiencies committee, I'm on the health advisory committee, so I kind of ran with that, and when Christine came on board, I said, Christine, this is something that we've been talking about, this is something that I think people really want to see, so when you put your RFP together, word it in such a way so that we can get information, school standalone, town standalone, put them together and see what the rates will be. And then got a very upset couple of people on the efficiencies committee saying, what do you think you're doing? And, so it was kind of my fault, because I push it thinking, that's what I heard was an important.
Sounds like a logical question.
But the other thing, too, that Jim just mentioned is, and I know the town did have a presentation on a high deductible plan that would be funded by the town. So so we're pulling that information together. We've pulled that information together too on the school side. So it
may
we've got
not be
some,
making a pool, it may be just making a plan that's consistent with deductibles and things of that nature. I just want to find out what the truth is.
Yeah, and again, that's something that has to be negotiated. So it's so it's all kind of being worked on.
Ellen?
Well, the efficiency committee met at 6 o'clock, and I went for just a half hour. I hadn't been before, and they asked if I would attend. So they did talk briefly about that and brought up that the town is looking into the different insurance plans, and the committee seemed to be in sync with that, again, trying to reduce costs by increasing deductibles and coming up with plans. I just was curious about how the cross-pollination is occurring to make sure that we're moving toward, I know you got the same firm working on it, but is there somebody in town who's making sure that you're negotiating with the teachers and you're working with the town? So how do we make sure that we don't end up like this, I guess?
Or has there been an agreement between the school board and the town council that you're going to pursue the same health insurance? That's really the question. I mean, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry to paraphrase
no,
or-
that's fine, yeah.
That's why I tend to think some of this falls with us to at least discuss, even though it's not in our purview, because there's no other place where the school board numbers and the town numbers come together except in the budget committee. And if we're saying the school board and the town aren't necessarily working on the same page in the same direction, other than changing the charter, that's my concern.
Well, I mean, we have Gary and Linda, and maybe they don't believe it, or the council and the school board don't believe that that's what it should be, so they don't bring it up and it doesn't happen. I mean,
Well, I just want to say that something that you need to remember too is part of the collective bargaining agreement is that surrounding health insurance is that any changes that are made to the insurance need to be of equal or greater value to their current policy or their current, and that it needs to be voted on by the union. So those are two things that are in the collective bargaining agreement. In the
if you
current,
wanted to
correct,
change it
collective
mid-year?
bargaining, yes.
If you change it mid-year?
Correct.
Mid-contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to say, in terms of, equal, that's evidently a very common thing for school districts in collective bargaining agreements, having that equivalent policy.
So you're saying
If you make a change,
I
an
don't know if that's the
equivalent.
town as well, but if I'm understanding this, you're saying whatever the prior contract had, the next contract has to be equivalent even if you change a few
That's
things.
not, there's no way you can do that, because the contract can't control
doesn't
the
make
next
any sense.
contract.
You mean, you can't.
It's within the contract year. If you guys, the school board decides that the cost is gonna go up 70% for the premium, so we
Right.
need to change plans,
Right. If we
that
want to
language is
change.
supposed to control it, but still, outside of the year, you could, outside of the middle of the contract, if the union agrees to change it, they can change it.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
But the new contract's totally up in the air. You could say no health insurance.
Right.
And if they agree to it, then,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's unlikely, we know that.
So so what you're saying is the new contract, it's wiped clean. You may have the
Everything's
last
on the-
contract
everything's
as a
on the table.
guidepost,
Right, right.
but you
Okay,
can change all the elements
Right,
in the new
right.
I
contract.
think everybody agrees. We just
Yeah, I just want
semantically
to, yeah, and
wanted to-
but I just wanted to make sure that, everyone knew kind of where we are at right now.
I think the budget committee, just to try to summarize so we can have Steve talk and move on, but I think the budget committee has consistently said that we think it would make sense if all employees of the school district and town had pretty much the same benefits and same opportunities. But it's up to the representatives that are on those boards to bring that and try to get consensus on that, because you're the ones who have to implement it, which is way harder than us just saying it's a good idea. Because you got the police union, the teachers union, et cetera. Drew, and then
Just
Gary.
because,
Hold on one second.
sorry.
I think I might say the same thing. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Because it's negotiations, we're not going to get there in one step.
Exactly.
What I would like to see is a trend towards consistency that comes out of the negotiations. Thank you.
Gary?
My recollection could be foggy because it was so long ago that we discussed it, but as I recall, and high deductibles are truly a relative term. I think the town's deductible, and I could be corrected with Steve, I think it's around $250. I think the school's is nothing. Correct. And
That's $4,000.
I think the last time we discussed it, the numbers were, I think we were talking about bringing it either to $750 or $1,000, and then covering the delta between $250 on the town side, and whether it was I think it was $750, but it might have been $1,000. I just can't remember. And then they came in with a change, and we never really vetted it subsequent to that. This is going back, I think, even before Steve started, by maybe a meeting or two, if memory serves me. And I haven't heard back from the agents at that point. I think when Steve came on, I don't want to speak for Steve, but I think when Steve came on, he was looking, he met with the efficiency, a couple of members, and I think they were talking about potentially coming up with a plan, and meaning not a plan, technically a health plan, but a game plan, and then having more than one agent quote on it. But that's sort of the sense I got, just because I think by law we should, or we're supposed to have a couple of different entities bid. I think we're going through LGC. Pardon my ignorance, does the school do LGC as well? Same?
We don't currently,
Okay.
but
So
we did
anyway,
receive a bid from them.
That's where, I haven't really seen an update. Have you, Steve, have you seen any? Yeah. I just so everybody knows what's going
Sure,
on.
that's great.
Excuse me.
When I got on board, I did meet with the efficiency committee, and we had going through the process of how to implement changes to the healthcare plan. It's not the plans themselves, because a big chunk of it, as with the school, is through a collective bargaining unit. I mean, I've heard it loud and clear here that, we want to have similar plans, and I think, I can't say too much because of the negotiations. We're not quite there yet, but we've heard it loud and clear that we want to try to get similar plans. The problem, as was mentioned, though, one has the NHTI or Health Trust, not the Health Trust, but yeah, and one has LGC. We got to try to come up with similar plans there. As for the deductible plans, those are on the table. I'm trying to crunch numbers myself every time we talk about it, see, does it make sense? Is it going to, is it going to provide a true savings to the town in the long run? Yeah. And, if they do. There's some high deductible plans that do, but part of it is how much if we fund the deductible portion for everybody. So it's part of it's trying to get there to figure out, as Drew said, it's incremental when we have to deal with a couple other steps in between adopting it officially. So.
What's the timeline, Steve, on all this coming down?
Well, hopefully on Wednesday night, the council will appoint two councilors to be on the negotiating team for the police contract, and then we'll begin negotiations there. So I think that's the bigger nut to crack there, is because you don't want to have a bunch of other plans. You'd rather have them all at once, switch over to a different plan, or come up with a different situation. So it would be for some time before it's voted on in March if we come up with something. If not, we'll look at our other options. We can always change the individuals not covered by a collective bargaining unit as long as it's less expensive than what's in the budget, because the budget ultimately guides that. So.
Does the town and the school always have the same plan, or does it have to?
Nope.
Okay.
We don't, and we currently don't.
know.
Okay.
Roseanne?
So Dr. Hayes, then, the school board and the teachers discuss the insurance.
Yes.
And Steve, with the town, who discusses, you have town employees discuss their insurance?
It depends on the employees.
Because
If they're covered by a collective bargaining unit, we have to negotiate that.
But I also thought last year Becky and some other town employees had a little group, and they discussed the best plan for the town employees
As
that
you
weren't in
know,
collective bargaining.
that may have been, that could be past practice. There's no law that states that you have to.
Okay, because, only because this is, if you want to compare it, if you have 2 or 3 teenage kids and you put them in a room and you say, you 3 tell mom and dad what you want your curfew to be. I
Absolutely.
mean, come on. It's,
But understand, we do have to negotiate with
I
collective bargaining
understand
unit,
that, but,
other employees, it's something that
yeah.
they're not covered by
And-
collective bargaining.
There's just, Roseanne, I think your analogy is probably going to irritate some town
I don't care.
employees.
I don't
And
care.
I
I don't
know-
care
I know-
who.
I know you don't, but if you can step back for a second and just let me finish. I think you're suggesting they're guarding the cookie jar, that there's.
They are.
But you have to have some buy-in from employees, otherwise morale is crushed.
You can
and
have buy-in,
I
but
didn't finish.
they should not be
They don't get to
controlling
make,
it.
they're not making the decision, because it's Gary and the other 6 members of the town council making the decision. So, or you're gonna ask Steve to do all the work by himself, because he has to have people like Matt who are gonna benefit from the health, well, he doesn't because he's not a consultant, but other people, someone is gonna be involved that benefits from it. So,
To a cer-
you
to a
gotta,
certain
I mean, come on,
degree.
at some point, you gotta realize that, I mean.
Yes.
Well, Matt's like the Congress. They vote the law and then exclude
Yeah.
themselves from the plan, so.
Anyway, I think what you should hopefully see is be able to have a great report that demonstrates what was looked at and what the costs were and when the savings were and why
I
things
just,
were.
just hope the employees all realize on both sides that no pay increases, and they have to have a greater burden with the health insurance. We just can't do it. They both have Cadillacs, and we just can't afford it anymore. We just can't.
I make an 8 o'clock curfew motion.
Ooh, I like this idea. My son will like it too.
Thought it
Like
had a
to
little
put him to
levity.
bed. Okay, so I think we're all set with the school.
Can I make just one comment?
You sure you
Very
want to
quick?
add something to
I do. I'll be
the
very
file?
fast.
Okay.
Next Tuesday night at 5:30 is a meeting of the Facilities Committee. There'll be a lot of things on the agenda, but the most important thing are cost estimates for these two construction projects going forward, and it's going to be very detailed. So if people can make it, certainly a public meeting, I encourage you to be there.
Where is it?
We will be videotaping it, so it won't be live.
Is it here or is it?
It's downstairs,
Downstairs.
auditorium.
Can you provide the date and time again, so? anyone-
Tuesday, October 23rd at 5:30
Thank you.
in the auditorium. And if you can't make it, we are going to videotape it, and that'll be shown on Channel 13 later. So, but really take a look at it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's much easier to speak back to the videotape.
All right, Steve, your turn. Hot seat.
Okay.
Stand, actually.
I got my calendar and
Okay,
and my.
Did I get one of those before?
you did, at the beginning of the meeting.
There it is,
Big thick thing with the fine print.
under your blue.
Okay.
I don't know what this involves, so it's not
Put it out some of the-
And I'll start off by, yes, we did send 109 pages. We'll chalk that up as, I'm not sure at this point what the Budget Committee is requesting. We're trying to cut that back and make sure you get more succinct
This is a
information.
lesson for.
No, absolutely. I've gone through I've gone through a few Budget Committees, and they all want different things.
I want to fill the room up to the ceiling.
We want to get consistent and accurate
And
information.
we'll try, and we are working on
That's
that.
Other than that,
Yeah.
Last page, bottom line.
So, if you want, we can go real quick through our expenses. At this point in time, we're done the first quarter. The total operating budget, we have 78.4% remaining in the operating budget. So we're running under at this point in time, which is good. It's actually dead on where we were last year. General fund is a little bit better at 77.6. Library is at 80.1. Recreation 64.3, which makes sense because they had all their programming during the summer. Solid waste 84.6. Waste water is 83.1, and wastewater is 81.9. Some of the things that are running a little higher, legal is at 42% remaining. We've had a lot of legal issues, and we are going to be continuing to monitor that to make sure we use counsel judiciously, no pun intended. Also, the other one you'd see is that roadways is low. Again, that's seasonal work that comes up with that. So we're doing fine with the expenses. I was not able to present a formal revenue report like this yet. We are working on that. It was not in the software system. And I've been discussing with finance that should be done easily before the next meeting. However, I can tell you that we budgeted $4,655,178 in revenues. We've collected $1,185,530, or 25%, so we're right on target with our revenue projections as of right now. Any questions on expense? I'll go before I give other highlights.
just to make sure I understand the group of numbers before, this is last year. Last year, the budget for
Fiscal year
general
end.
fund was 6,585.
Yes,
And since last year is over, we only spent 76.8%.
no, that is period to period, comparing the periods.
Oh, okay.
So you can compare the September to September, so you could, track where we were last year at the same point in time.
But the 6,585, I think Matt said we'd save 500 and some odd thousand off that as part of what went into the general fund last year. Part of the savings that increased the general fund balance,
Which is what?
or from saving expenses last year.
Oh, I don't remember the exact number off.
So monies that we didn't expend,
Correct.
that would be on the fund balance, that's correct. We can get
That's-
that number.
Okay, so this is just.
Yeah, this is to compare
Okay,
same periods.
thank you.
September.
Just a quick, what was the legal, Steve? What was the total that we've spent so far this year?
So far this year, we have spent, as of September 30th, $29,000, which is,
Well, I see that number, but now I shouldn't assume anything. Obviously, we've been spending a fair amount with the negotiations for the wastewater.
yes.
Is that not in this number?
That is not in that number, that's in water, that would be in water, I mean, water, sewer. line.
Okay, so just for clarification, so the water and sewer number has the legal costs associated with it in that number?
That's correct.
Water and sewer, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's a line item that I'm going to be monitoring for the next year's
'Cause
budget
that's
as
a
well.
big number.
It is,
What's the negotiations in the wastewater about with EPA?
Yes.
yeah.
It's north of six figures, isn't it?
I'd have to double check, but yes, I believe it would be.
It's gonna be, or if it isn't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So those are the.
I think this format is great. I personally don't need last year's year-to-date.
Okay.
But, because I can't read this without my glasses and probably a magnifying glass, to be
Okay,
honest.
so if you don't need yet last
Committee
year's.
wants both things. I mean, maybe if we can just reduce the number of columns somehow, because then the type would be bigger.
You know what would really help too, just if they could draw a line across.
Sure, for each department.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, yeah, because, when you look at, like, I looked at legal and I was trying to, line it up.
Yep,
Ruler out.
Well,
we can do that.
I understand. We can
Shade
do-
alternates.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll probably do, is I'll do the shading.
But having last year, I think, is good for one respect. At least, for example, I think this year, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I think there's going to be a little bit of relief, meaning tax relief. And I think it's good for people to be able to see what the department spent last year versus this year, what the budgets were. I think it helps with context when we set up a new budget, personally. So, helps me.
Okay.
Okay. Some other issues that we're dealing with that the Budget Committee may be interested in. We have received our guaranteed maximum rate increase for our health insurance for next year.
Going down?
No. It's going to be, as of right now, it's a 6% increase, however, which is $30,500 over the previous year. But we're right now, lack of a better term, we're auditing the healthcare line. Some of the numbers aren't adding up, and we want to make sure that we have an accurate number for next year's budget. In addition, the local government center where we buy our health care has announced that we will be receiving a rate holiday. So some of the money will be coming back. And right now, for an estimate, that would be about $25,000. So it'd probably be almost a wash for our increase there. And again, this is only the guaranteed maximum rate. It could actually be lower. So that's where we are for that.
That's the healthcare line within each of the other pages, because there's no healthcare.
There's one that says healthcare, it's under human resources. So next year's budget, that's what the impact will be, not in this document that you have here. It'll be, and much like the superintendent said, I'll be presenting the proposed budget to the council on Wednesday evening.
What are some of the inconsistencies that you found when you guys have been reviewing the budget, the health?
The number itself, it seems like it's a little higher. It's higher than what was from using actual staffing and what the actual plans that are being received by the employees. And I want to make sure that it reflects for one-to-one. The number, we've got 20 family plans, it's exactly 20 family plans in there, et cetera. So that's something I'm
I do it for
reviewing.
2 employees.
Yeah.
It's not simple to make sure you don't screw the math up.
Right.
When, 75%, 25%.
Right, and that's why I want to make sure we have the numbers reflect it. As the superintendent mentioned, retirement is hitting us as well for next year's fiscal year. For Group 1 employees, which are non-police and fire, we're seeing a 1.2% increase in the retirement rates for employers to 10.77. Police is going to be an increase of 5.35% to 25.3%. And fire is an increase of 4.85 to 27.74%. Overall, this will have an impact of about $124,000 on next year's operating budget.
The first one you mentioned, I've seen fire, police, and teachers.
Employees and everybody else,
Okay.
every other town employee.
The everybody else group went from 1 to 10%?
No, it went from 8.8 to, or 8.9 to about 10.77.
Which is up about 20%, give or take, anyway, right?
Right.
Is that in here, Steve, broken out?
No, this is this year's. It'll be in next year. This is going to impact next year's budget. I'm just giving a forecast of some of the things that we're going to be seeing.
That would be great to have I know we'll get it at
Yeah.
some point, to have in a single sheet.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. You will, then, yeah,
Like if we cut out 40 of those other pages and had that?
yeah, we can do that. Yeah, no, I understand.
Well, that would be good to have.
Imagine your introductory memo for your budget.
Yeah, there's the council's getting a 20-page report before the budget, so.
And that's not this year funding,
That's fiscal year 14. We're in fiscal year 13.
That's the budget we're gonna start working on in a couple weeks.
Right.
So the pension thing, if I remember what Jim said and you said, we're talking about at least $350,000 to $400,000 of increased cost to the town, though not increased benefits to the employees.
Correct.
It's just,
Right.
the state said, good luck to you in the future, pay another $400,000.
Right. Municipalities actually sued the state. It was a group effort, and the Supreme Court ruled against the municipalities. So we have to pick it up. And no other answer. It's not going to get deep. It's the way it is.
Do you have
Yeah,
another one of these by chance?
I do.
Roseanne wasn't here, I think, when you first passed them out.
Super, thank you.
Is there any other, sounds like there might be another highlight or two you want to tell us.
Well, just some of the things that we're working on since I've gotten here. Finance and I are reviewing a number of policies and procedures that are either outdated or missing. Where it comes to finance, the council just adopted and revised their fund balance policy to be more in line with what's common practice across the state. We are also going to be reviewing and updating the chart of accounts. So the numbers you see in here for the chart of accounts will probably not be the same for fiscal year 15. We're going to make sure we have it in the current budget so you don't get confused yet, but we don't use the same chart of account as a majority of the municipalities across the state use. We want to try to bring it more in line so we can do better comparatives between communities. Other than that, it's just since I've been here, we're just trying to catch up on things, find things that are missing, and trying to get them more information and the right information to everybody.
That new number, just so everybody knows, I think we're basing it
For the fund balance?
between 5 and 8.
5 and 10
Okay.
is, and it's the gross appropriations for town, school, and county. Versus before
That's
it
a
was,
bigger,
16.
bigger pool that you're.
it's a bigger pool, but it's actually a very similar number.
Yeah, yeah.
So before it was 16% of the 3 months operating budget.
Even though we weren't really doing that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is actually the common GFOA, New Hampshire Government Finances Office Association,
This is for cash reserves, quote unquote.
fund balance, unreserved fund balance, yes.
Yeah, it's not cash reserve.
It's not cash in
No,
hands. I want to make sure nobody thinks you have cash in hand.
It's your rainy day fund.
It's in case we need something, but it's not cash on hand. We don't have a bank account
Yeah.
with this cash sitting in there.
But the numbers from 16% you said are different in the 3 or 4 operations. What are those?
It used to be 8 to 16, now they just changed it to 5 to 10.
Between 5 and 10.
Of the gross appropriation.
Yeah, well, they changed it because nobody has.
Nobody did. Well, no, we didn't do that. It's not common practice, and that was one of the things. When I saw that, it was like we had the model fund balance policy, except one portion of it, and I'm like, well, why did we not follow that? And it just doesn't. It didn't. Yeah.
Then it's nice to have 2 months worth of
But
cash.
but we don't have 2 months. And that's one thing people have to realize. It's not as if we have 2 months worth of cash sitting there. It's just that our unreserved fund balance on paper only says you have that. Cash flow is different than the unreserved fund balance. Those are two different things when it comes to the municipal accounting world.
Just along, just to.
Sure.
The budget, I think also, just to give us a ballpark, it may be the first time we beat the council out with information, was how much below what was budgeted from last year, give or take?
The proposed budget?
Yeah, in other words, from what we had budgeted for last year.
Yep.
Is it about 5 or 4 or 5? Do you know what?
Are you saying the fiscal year 13 versus the fiscal?
Yeah, how much are we going to come in under budget? Ballpark.
13?
For 12.
For this year, yeah, for this fiscal year that we're looking.
Fiscal year ending June 30th,
Yes.
2012.
I don't have a number off the top of my head.
Well, 2013. We've
No,
already done
no.
Yeah.
The fund balance that would be submitting in, anything that, we are currently in fiscal year 13. When we say 13, we're in that. We don't know what we're going to end up there yet. We have not finished the year. What Councilor Levy's asking is, how did we end fiscal year 12?
Yeah, and how much lower was it from what was
Right,
budgeted?
and we're still
Right.
finishing the audit now. I don't have that ballpark on
That's
the
the
top of my
number you're
head.
saying on the expense side? I thought that was the number Matt gave us, and we have in our minutes of about 580,000 is what the number we had
That would
last
been,
month.
yes,
It's in that range, subject to the audit. yeah.
Unaudited.
right. The auditors are still going through
Okay.
right now.
I thought you were gonna tell me that his budget for this year came in 580,
what-
less than what he
No,
spent
no,
last year. I was like,
No,
"Geez."
I think,
He made condos.
but I thought the number was around, is it 5%, or is it in that ballpark?
I don't have a percentage, but I think 500 sounds right.
Close, okay.
Yeah.
And 500 would be about 5% of a $10 million gross budget.
That's why I'm at, you know.
No, actually not. The 580, if that's the number of the 500,
about-
should have nothing to do with water and sewer.
Yeah, it's about
because
6 million.
The town's budget is only 5 to 6 million, ex water and sewer. So that would be more like a 10% savings against the town's budget. You know, the moving parts here are wonderful, but, you know, the 16% was against about a $6 million budget.
Right.
So that would get about $1 million that you'd want to have in your, I'll say the right words this time, reserve fund balance. And now that number's, because it was based on 6 million. We voted on 10 million, but the other 4 million is for water and sewer that have nothing to do with the tax rate. So really, Steve's direct controllable budget outside water and sewer rates is about 5-6 million bucks.
And the number you said is about the same number, exactly the same number of switching to this new formula. It's about 1.1.
Versus 16%.
Right. Because we should actually be holding money, because, as you know, the schools can't raise taxes, the county can't, only the municipality can, so that's why they say it should be the gross appropriations for the three of those, instead of just
The
ours.
580 in savings was about a savings of 10% off that
Right.
$6 million
Yep.
town budget. Outside school, water, sewer, SIP.
CIP number.
It's frightening, I understand.
But I disagree a little bit. Look at this first page. The library, the recreation, the solid waste are all taxpayer dollars. They're enterprise funds, but there's not a special revenue source coming in for them. And if they don't bring in any money to pay the camp fees, then we're raising the full amount of the appropriation from taxes. So,
And I'm fine on that, but the theory would be they could be self-funded, and that's why they're outside the general fund
no,
line.
it's a better way to help you track. They are supposed to be a program that helps cover their costs, hopefully all of it. They don't, but they're enterprise funds, so they have to be separated.
They're not, they're special funds, and that's what we're calling, that's what they're referring, they're not, there are such things as called revolving funds, which is money in, money out, it covers the program. Not always, you usually have a little bit for the staff people, because it's just not gonna cover that. These aren't revolving funds. From my review of this so far, it's, and talking to the auditors, it's, as the chair was saying, it's just a way to separate the accounting of them, that we sort of give them a subsidy for anything that's not made up through their own revenues.
So is it fair to break this into three pieces and say, general fund is the basic operating expense, there may be some grants or other miscellaneous, but it's tax, and then there's this special group of three that may be self-funded or closer to it, but we contribute to, and then there's water and sewer that are supposed to be completely standalone and not be part of the tax rate.
Yeah, personally, I would only separate water and sewer. The rest of
Yeah.
it, because the library, they get
Okay, that's fine.
$277,000 and they get to spend it. And if they raise any revenue, they
Right.
get to keep it. It never affects how much money they get from us. Because it's a grant.
But
they
we only
control.
give them as much as they put into to invoice back to us, because they didn't spend all their money.
They petitioned for a grant.
That's the whole library thing is,
Well, but this
Lakota?
this number doesn't reflect the whole year. This is only through, remember, this is only,
yeah, okay, September.
I'm pretty sure they got the entire appropriation that was authorized to them. but-
We do it on a periodic basis, on monthly basis, but they will get whatever.
But then the 580 of savings would have come from what's classified as general operating, Because if you funded the library and the other specials with what they were supposed to get, they wouldn't have had a savings against what they were budgeted.
I don't know if I followed that, but let's just pretend that,
Yes.
let's just pretend
That's
that the
right. That's
recreation
right.
fund, someone gave the rec department $100,000 last year that they didn't budget, then we would have a savings of $100,000 on the on the tax rate side.
If you budgeted to give them 100 and you gave them
No,
100.
someone gave them more money than they anticipated on
They
the
took it
revenue
and
side. It
spent it.
reduces how much money gets paid from taxes, therefore we're saving money on the tax rate, therefore there's more money.
When we budget our revenues, we don't budget for the property taxes. What we budget
That's the
for,
back end.
right, that is, and that, so what we actually have two swings at the bat, like a better, the ball, like a better term, for revenues. You have it when you present the budget, and you can provide them with the revised revenue estimates later on, in case of a situation where we had a miracle, $100,000 in recreation that we weren't anticipating, we don't need to raise that through taxation. So we do that usually right before the tax rate setting. Problem we have is that we're actually estimating what our taxes are gonna, how much we're gonna collect way off in the future, so we're not too far off on that, between the budgeted and revised.
Is it like the school, though, where those special groups return funds that they don't use because of extra revenue generation?
Not all, no.
Okay.
They're
So
separated in a different fund.
if we gave them 100,000, they had 100,000 extra of revenue that they didn't plan on, unless they gave the money back to the town. The town would still have given them $100,000, and they get to keep the extra 100.
Some of them are holding fund balances, that is correct.
I'd try my question a different way. What is our I'm more interested in where we are looking this year. When do you think we'll have an idea of what the tax rate may be set for this coming year?
DRA is behind, probably early November, late October, early November.
And will
It has to be.
you present will there be a
Press
official-
release.
No, an official decision by the council on that? At a
Council,
meeting?
We have some
council,
decisions to make, I think. on-
right, any decisions on the use of fund balance will be from the council. Council does not set the tax rate,
Right.
town doesn't set it, state sets it. Only thing council would have authority over is amount of fund balance that can be used. I would be making a recommendation, the council would be authorizing,
Okay,
so,
that's good.
okay.
And
Right.
when might we find this out?
I have on the agenda for Wednesday night if we have all information in hand,
Yeah.
but if not, I would hope if not the next regular meeting, maybe a special meeting.
And all the information is that last part of the puzzle with
Yes.
the downtown thing?
There's some questions about the downtown improvement fund that I want clarified
Good.
before we go forward.
But if I understand the buy down of the tax rate, if that's going to be considered by the council, which is part of what got us into the 15% increase this year.
Mhm.
because the theory would be we wouldn't be buying down the tax rate with an amount that we couldn't plan on repeating in the future. So it wouldn't be a 1 year, oh boy, the tax rate went down, and the next year, oh my goodness, the tax rate went up twice as much. I mean, there's
If I was
supposed to
Steve,
be
that's
some.
what I
That would be my recommendation to the council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just keep
Fund
that-
balance should be used, we should make sure the tax rate can be level. Don't use, if you have a large amount of fund balance for some reason, it shouldn't always be used just to drop the tax rate that 1 year, because it's just gonna spike up the next year, it's a one-time revenue source.
As well we know.
Yeah, but what you could use it for is a capital item. Or, you may have 1 year you need to do a reval for some reason, I'm gonna say that. And you could say, well, we have this excess in fund balance, it's a one-time cost, we have a one-time excess there, use it there. So you don't have that spike, you don't have the spike on the tax rate either from the expense.
I like the way, that's 100 to 150.
Right.
We do the assessments, right. Okay.
Well, I just want to leave you with one thought, a bird in the hand. Sometimes it's not, I mean, I understand we don't want to be bouncing around like a pinball, but, if we don't reduce it with, with some of the money, and we don't do a one-time, reval or something, right? What would theoretically the money, would you just put it aside?
Just sits there.
Would actually be an emergency, non-cash
Right. the undesignated and reserve fund balance.
And if there is the 585 or whatever the number is from this year, what would be the range what's the estimated total of the fund balance right now?
Estimated total is about 1.3, which is about 6.7%.
So it's barely in the range.
So it's right over 5. I'll tell you, it's a lot healthier than a lot of municipalities in the
That's
state.
because you're adding up everything and just not using the town's portion.
We do not use water and sewer in that one. The 1.5 is not water and sewer. Water and sewer is separate. And we are going to be working on a fund balance policy for those as well.
But you're combining the school and.
Yes. That's 1.5 would be 6.7% of the gross appropriations for county, school, in town.
X water and sewer.
X water and sewer. Yep.
Seems reasonable to me.
Does that include the money for the water CIP as well? For the downtown?
No.
Okay, so it could be as high as 1.7, but potentially.
Yeah, whatever, when we come up to a final figure from auditors and other questions that we have.
Okay.
It's been enlightening.
Well, I mean, it's important because, you know, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a, no, it's a
I wasn't
really.
being facetious. I was
No,
being serious.
I wasn't, you know, it's
Still
a
trying
real
to
tough philosophical question when
enjoy the
people are having
parameters
trouble
around
with
the
their
playing
taxes.
field.
And realizing no one wants to bounce around, but, and I think we really have to analyze why it went down, and, you know, like, we had very little snow last year, so we had a, you know, surplus in those funds that we had budgeted, which is why it's nice to have the year before too, just so you can sort of get an idea. But, you know, if we could do it last year, in some cases where we might be able to duplicate it, that's where, you know, reducing it and trying to hold the, you know, it's just a tough time right now for a lot of people, so, anyway.
And just one thing also when you're thinking fund balance is that the tighter you get on the actual budgeting process, the less you have to put in the fund balance too.
Yeah.
So that, you know, I've dealt with that also, that they're like, well, why don't we have a lot in fund balance this year to put in? I go, well, because we reduced the budget and got it tighter, so you can't have it both ways there too. So just to think about that.
And that's the point. If you tighten it up,
Yeah.
then you live to your budget. And if you don't, then you've got this pad that you're going, well, you know, we didn't, you know, look what we did, but what we did really wasn't that amazing because maybe we had too much in there, and, you know, that's what hopefully we're gonna do. We're gonna try to find the right number.
Right.
So we can be healthy. Anyway, I don't wanna.
Okay. I think if there's any, do you have any update for the union negotiations?
We have not started yet.
That's right, because you mentioned the need
Yeah,
to
right.
appoint two
We
more
need
members.
2 counselors on it. The police have changed the representation from the Teamsters to New England Police Benevolent Association. I've had some conversations with the representative from that organization, and we're raring to go.
I'm just curious if you are planning to engage legal counsel for the negotiations or just for the drafting of the actual contract?
I haven't talked with council, town
town
council
council,
about
yeah.
that.
Might be a good way to save money.
It would be one way, but I want to make sure what we're discussing is also legal instead of finding out at the end that we're not doing everything correctly. Yeah, I'd rather make sure.
Newmarket?
I just know the last time we did it, we spent a lot of money.
Oh, it's expensive.
And it didn't necessarily
Yeah.
help us that
And,
much.
and, you know, I'll have to look at the services that the attorney provides and the individual.
Yeah.
Where are those legal expenses in the?
That is in that $50,000. That is in there.
And that, yeah.
It's just gone.
That's the
That's gonna be
the tight
overspent.
one.
Anything else that you want to add at this point?
Just, I'm glad to be here. and
Welcome to Newmarket.
Thank you. It's
good to have
be
you
in front of the
here.
committee.
Welcome, and I hope our questions don't drive us crazy. We're learning. just
Absolutely
like you.
not. So.
One question,
Yeah.
not about budget, but what's that big crane doing up at the water tank?
Yeah.
Haven't
Cell
noticed a
towers.
big crane up in the,
Huge.
Cell
I'm assuming it
towers,
must
I
be cell towers, but
I've been guessing it's cell
It's
tower.
like 10
Yeah, it
times
must be.
taller than the cell towers,
we
though.
probably just need the right.
It shouldn't be the capital project that wasn't put together
No.
last year.
There's not a new water tower.
Not
going
that I
up.
know, yeah, no. There's no water towers going up.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, she was driving
Yeah.
by and looking up.
There's
Great.
probably
I've
must be
noticed
cell
that a couple
tower
days in a row
maintenance.
going
Yeah,
to Exeter.
I'll,
Yeah.
if I drive by.
Okay, great.
Great.
All right, efficiency committee update. Ellen, you were there. Is there anything else to add?
Do you need me any longer, or because I zoning
No.
board wants to? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Matt. Going to the airport?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
He didn't speak tonight. Do we have to pay for him to?
Okay.
You did.
Well, I just went for half an hour for the first time ever, so I'm not the best to speak on the efficiency committee, but they regrouped after, I think it was after that presentation in June or July, whenever that was.
Right.
The joint committees met, the school board met, and the town council met, and some other folks attended. So they want to, I think, still continue to meet, and Phil, the council chair, and Cliff, the board chair, have been having coffee periodically, apparently, to try and share information and keep things going. And
Have a budget for that?
so I don't know who
pay
bought
for
the
that
I don't know who
budget.
bought the coffee. They didn't. But so the bottom line was they were just I was only there for half an hour, and they just restated what they felt had been accomplished by the efficiency committee, which was getting the conversation going about the insurance, talking about the flexi fuels for the vehicles, which I think is a somewhat small item, but still under discussion, and Steve's working on it, I think. And the finance, I don't think has really gone too much farther yet in terms of trying to consolidate finances and facilities management. Those two are still, I think, out there. What I heard tonight when I was there was Phil in particular said, you know, all this is great, but we have big structural things that need to be discussed to really have any impact or have any major impact on the tax rate. So that's kind of when I had to leave. So I don't know if the committee talks some more. I do know Bob Coffey emailed Brian and I a month or so ago and said we still want to keep going with this, and we'd like a budget committee member or two to be on the efficiency committee. So, I mean, I think it's open to, I just went for half an hour, so I haven't quite got the sense of what the committee's now going to do moving forward, or how often they're going to meet. Maybe, have you been on the committee?
Well, I haven't been officially on it. They've asked me to participate from time to time, which I've been happy to do. I was looking forward to them tonight, and if not, I don't know if they're going to be on the calendar next time, because I thought they were on the agenda. I think they have an interesting view on where tax rates are going and projects and priorities and things that we should be thinking about, because maybe we want to ask some of those questions as we go through the budget reviews. So I would love to be able to get an update maybe at our next meeting from the efficiency committee at what seeds they want to plant in our minds about what they think should be happening and what's going on today.
Can I just add one more thing? I do know that I left before maybe Matt talked about it, but Bob Coffey had put together this projection that he had come up with based on his own analysis for his house. And I know Matt said before the meeting, he was saying that I think he's going to present it to the council. He's looking at a 5-year, projection of taxes. So Matt, I think, is saying, we're working on this on the town side. We're looking at a longer term projection on what the tax rate might do. And I think the idea is hopefully the school will do that as well. I don't quite know where that is, but that is one thing that Matt, I think, is working on with Steve, or Steve is working on, I should say. Steve is probably the one that put it together. So that's happening, and I think the council's going to hear about that on Wednesday. I'm not entirely sure about that, so.
Presentation that Bob, I think, put up on a slide at the joint.
Right, and I think what Matt.
Committee, and it was something, the taxes doubled in 8 years.
Right, and what Steve and Matt are saying is they have better numbers because of all the detailed analysis, so I think there'll be better information presented soon, and people can take a look at that. But the overarching, I think, feeling of the efficiency committee is there still needs to be, okay, we have that information. Now what do we do about it? What can we do as a town?
Right, what's the action behind
What ability do we have to change the structure? And I think they still feel that this separation of school town, which is I think what a lot of towns have, is difficult to sort of make major structural changes.
Yeah, I think LGC said the city form of government is the only one that sort of puts those two under a fiscal control, where any other form other than the city usually separates them. I mean, and I don't know, I'm disappointed they weren't here tonight. but if possible, I'd love to.
Well, they apparently scheduled a meeting tonight too, which I didn't know about till I got asked to go on Thursday.
But, you know, I mean, the concerns I have are some of theirs, just as a personal level. I think many of the people I've spoken to in the committee have the same ones. If you talk about $50 to $100 million worth of projects, if you talk about 20% increases in pension costs being pushed down to the town, if you talk about less funding from the state, you're talking about issues that we can't prevent that are going to add seriously $2 to $3 million easily to either loss of revenue or increased expense that we're going to have to put up with. And that's going to be a 20 to 30% increase in taxes over the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, there's almost no way to avoid that momentum in there. And so unless you want to avoid a 20 or 30% increase, we may have to be focusing more on our current expenses around the place. And I'm just speaking off the top of my head, but I'd love for us as a group to have the best information and to share with the town what people see the directions going.
All right, so we will add them to the agenda, but let's, I mean, and then does anybody want to come and be on it as a budget committee representative? That was really that was the.
Well, oh, if it was.
Sorry,
I
wasn't.
I
my agenda was not
participated
very clear,
before.
sorry.
Should I speak to Al or Phil or who?
No, I think Brian you would just email
Appoint
Bob
him.
and say, yeah, you're on the efficiency committee as a rep from the budget committee.
Yeah, I was on it previously as budget committee chair, and I said I don't have time for this many meetings.
Well, I remember you pulling your hair out in a few meetings, so.
It just,
Ellen, can you send me an email?
and there's a lot of good ideas.
Is,
There's
'cause
not a
I-
lot of energy from my experience to implement them, and a lot of them are going to take a huge amount of energy.
Yeah, I guess I'm still not clear what the efficiency
Yeah.
committee is going to do moving forward. And I guess another point I have is, it seems like we've made incredible progress with Matt on the finance side of things. And Steve is like this incredible breath of fresh air, and he's just started. So I would like to give him some time to see where he's wants to go with the town and working with the town. And so I just want to make sure the efficiency committee is working very closely with Matt and Steve, rather than adding sort of,
Than just meeting.
rather than just meeting or adding more
Probably didn't say that, right?
complication to moving forward. So the efficiency committee should be efficient, I guess.
Yeah, just to let, and being honest, I think some of the things they're trying to do are great. I think there's been an incredible amount of frustration because of lack of cooperation between the school board and the town in past and having joint goals, okay? And I'm more than happy to try to participate in the efficiency committee, okay? I may also tell you I'll bail, because if I don't see people working together, then it's useless. And that's what created some of the meetings this summer, where we tried to get people in the same room. So, yes, I'll sign up initially for it. I'd rather focus on the budget.
Thank you, Russ.
Gotcha.
Do we have a CIP update of any depth?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're done. We met, and final recommendation for the CIP for next year is 910,000. 910,000. That's 51,000 less than was requested. However, it's also 168.5 more than last year.
I was going to say that number seems higher than what I
Yeah.
remember.
901?
910,069. This has now gone to the town administrator. I fully expect that there'll be additional cuts. There were some there were some additions to this recommendation. There were 4 new categories established. Actually, some of them were there before, but funded for $1, and there were money put aside. But I do expect that there will be reductions from the town administrator and probably the town council. Try to bring it back into closer to the 741 that was last year.
Right, so we'll have, I mean, I don't want to, it's hard to discuss it without it, but we're going to have a lot of discussion about this as part of the budget.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We'll have all the information with us when we do that.
And does that
That's
come
great.
up through Steve, or does that come as a separate presentation from CIP? When you say
He
the
will-
town has an input on what CIP came up with,
No,
do
the
we
town
hear from Steve
administrator,
at some
and then
point
you
on
will go
all the
to
moving
the,
parts, or?
I think the committee duty is on, presented, says this is the plan. Steve takes it and tweaks the numbers to fit his budget that he just gave the council.
Right.
And then the council
When we have-
tweaks it, and then it comes, but there's still a plan that the committee is responsible for
Right.
presenting.
Right. And we had that joint meeting one Saturday morning sometime in the future where all of this will come up.
And Judy, just because I don't know, CIP is funded from both operating or warrant article? Or it
It's
could be
operating.
either or is it just
No,
operating?
it's the operating.
Usually it's in the budget, there's a line
It's in-
item for it. If you want to create a new fund, you have to get a warrant article passed.
Right.
Like if you
But-
want to create the giant crane fund.
Right, but
On
is
the
the
waterfront.
700 or 900 that you're
example-
talking about what the expenses
Yeah. For
you want
example,
to expend next
The re-
year?
No, it's the
No.
money to be put into it.
into it, to go into reserve.
Okay.
For
Funding
example,
only.
It's the funding
there will
only.
be a warrant article to establish a reevaluation fund.
Oh, okay.
Background is that we have to have by August of 2014,
15, 14.
14, we have to have a total reevaluation or statistical reevaluation of the town. We had gotten misinformation all along,
Yeah.
and we're in the thought that we gave $20,000 a year in the operating budget to do a minor reevaluation.
It was a 20% reevaluation each
20%.
year.
Yeah,
So-
it's a
And thinking that at the end of the day, that we would have done 100%. Well, that's not the rule. It just came to light
Okay.
that it's done. So we have to have a warrant article to establish this reevaluation fund. And since that reevaluation has to be done on a very short timeline, the first year we'll have 75,000 in it, the next year we'll have 75,000 in it, and then it will go back down.
It
So-
sounds like Steve might even be thinking of using
Using
some of the
some of the-
unreserved fund
yeah.
balance to pay for that.
He may have an
But
Could
that's-
be, but at this
There'll be a warrant
point,
article on that topic no matter what.
yeah, at this point, that's the big hit,
Yeah.
is that we have to raise $150,000 in 2 years to
But
pay
if
for
you're
this.
saying the 900,000, it doesn't have to do with what's going out and what projects and what we're
No,
buying.
no.
So is it right to say that 900,000 out of the 6 million general fund operating budget goes to capital? So
No,
those-
because only 450,000 of that is for the general fund amount. The other is the allocation for water and
Water
sewer,
and sewer.
459.
So-
Yeah, I was gonna say, the 910 to me, I was like,
Oh, that's a
we don't
two-
spend that much money
Yeah.
from,
I'm sorry.
from.
Okay, so
I
if you
should've-
took water and sewer out, it's
It's
maybe about half, so it's
It's
a half a
450.
million.
450,000.
Okay, 450
that-
out of the 6 million.
And that goes into funds that are already
It'll
established.
then come back down again, probably.
For fire trucks.
Yeah,
police
but that's
cars,
that's the expected annual funding.
Vehicle
you're saying.
replacement.
Yeah.
Giant crane.
Builds.
Fire trucks. Dispatch is in there this year.
Right, dispatch, yeah.
Three-card month here. I-
Okay,
Recreation.
that's great.
Shells.
Exactly.
Was it a good process?
Like
Yes,
do that
it was.
first and
It
then-
was
Rick McMenamin-
excellent.
Rick
Excellent
McMenamin was
this year.
chair. It went very
This
smoothly.
line,
It was
it's-
very, very good.
Rick
Rick
McMenamin
McMenamin.
from planning.
Okay. So the next item is review meeting schedule. So just using the schools, which someone ripped out of their packet and put in front of me. The school's gonna have their budget to us basically the weekend of Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving. So we're not gonna meet that week, because we're gonna get it on Monday. Thanksgiving's Thursday or Tuesday, so that's just not gonna happen.
We'll read it.
And then the school board, as Russ pointed out, starting there, the town's gonna be on a similar process. I think that the charter must have a date by which they have to give us the budget, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
We need a calendar from Steve at some point.
Yeah, so I asked him, when I talked to him, I asked him to come to this meeting about this. He's gonna be preparing that, but obviously, he just finished.
This hasn't been updated lately, so.
He just finished the budget, so he'll give it to us. So, we need to set some dates to start our review. Basically, I would say the week after Thanksgiving. It makes sense to me. Because that's when we're actually gonna have the proposed
All the
budgets from the legislative body and the school board and the town council to actually start to review in detail.
Well,
And we probably need to have a Saturday or two sometime, because
Oh.
that's the week of the 26th, I think, correct?
I
That
do
sounds
have-
Yes.
I do have the new stuff. The council shall review the budget and make such modifications and amendments as it desires and submit the proposed budget to the budget committee no later than November 15th. Or at such other time as designated by the budget committee. So this is on the town side, that they've got to have budget to us on the.
Well, it seems like we're gonna meet pretty continuously between the 26th and December 15th, because nobody's gonna wanna meet in Christmas and New Year's, and it's gotta get wrapped up by like January 8th or 10th or something. I mean, somewhere in there, we created a faster calendar and put all the holidays of the year.
Is there, just from a scheduling standpoint, so if we did it, would it really matter if we did it the first week of December? Would it have any tangible effect?
it cuts out a week that, I mean, because I don't think we're gonna be meeting the week of Christmas, which is the 24th.
Yeah.
And the week of the 17th, maybe early in that week, but when you get late in that week, people start to get, I gotta go shopping
Yeah.
or Christmas or travel
Well,
or,
I'm gonna be gone, I'm gonna
Seriously.
be gone the week after Thanksgiving, that's why I'm asking.
yeah.
I'm asking, is there a tangible, I mean, like, what would we be, what will that meeting be comprised of?
First meeting?
The first.
Well, we
Looks
would
like the
probably
school-
choose to either have the school or the town start to present their budget.
The school should have.
Steve or Jim come here and say, here are the highlights, here are the problems, here are the, why this went up.
So that's a pretty important meeting.
I'd say so.
Well, if per the charter, the town side at least has to have the proposed budget to us November 15th. Could we address the town side on Monday the 19th? Or start to? The school says the 20th.
But then
I
you
know-
also have the warrant articles there.
You're never gonna have them at the
Well,
same
The
time.
warrant articles
Not
are
gonna
later.
happen.
So, okay, and that's
I think it
fine.
works for
So
me.
we do
can't-
the
we can
operating
always come
budget
later.
first, and then by
Hopefully,
December
hopefully they know
15th.
which one, like, yes, we're gonna have a warrant article about the reval, or yes, we're gonna have a warrant article about the construction, but hopefully we'll at least know that.
Right, but we can't make a decision without knowing all the pieces until probably,
Early
But we
January.
have to
Early
start the
January.
process. We can't make this all
I
in
know
one
this is
night.
kind of, I'm not sure, but would the council meet the first week of November? The first Wednesday is the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
The third Wednesday is the 21st, okay, which is Thanksgiving week. Would the council meet the day before Thanksgiving, do you think?
Probably not.
No.
If I was on the council, I'd be
So,
moving that date.
Maybe
to the
we should
14th.
just, well, I'm asking because if we, that'll have an effect because either the council's gonna meet.
I have a feeling you're gonna have a lot more meetings than you currently have on the
Okay,
council.
well, no, I don't have a problem with that, I'm just trying to figure out
Because
if.
historically, even Ed did it, there was 2 or 3 Saturday sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you probably
No,
have.
I'm just
those.
talking about the Wednesdays. Would they meet, if they didn't meet on that Thanksgiving, would they meet the week after or the week before? I'll have to find
Depends
out.
on what's pressing, if
Yeah.
vital or whatever.
Okay.
But the town has to have their budget to us by the 15th.
So they'll probably do it on the
We'll
14th
probably
because
get
he
it
might
on the
discuss it.
15th.
Right.
Well,
Okay, then if
So-
that's the case.
The 19th?
I would rather do it then, because I'll be around, just for whatever it's worth, if you want it. I know it's the week of
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
I just
jumping on
know
the
I'm not
piece.
gonna be able to read anything that weekend because I have a major event. So
What
I
about
just
the 20th?
personally won't be
We'll
able to
help
do
you.
anything.
Is the 20th bad?
Yes. For me it is.
I would prefer if we gave ourselves opportunity to review it, so people have the chance. I don't think 3 days is enough time. That's why I'm hesitant to force something the week of Thanksgiving. You know, we're all gonna have time on Thanksgiving or Friday or Saturday after we've eaten too much turkey to review a bunch of long documents.
Brian?
Personally, I'm not, yeah. And it's only the first one, Gary.
Well,
If we did the
that would
town
be
one
the
that night,
weekend.
then you wouldn't be missing anything, because you just went through it.
No, listen,
Let's do the
okay with
town
me.
one.
So if we shoot for the town one that week, that he's not here, then
Okay.
we'll do the school one the following week.
Um,
And we're gonna get the school one later, because of their
They're
deadline.
not, yeah, because of their,
We don't have a charter deadline for them.
One thing that I wanted to remind folks of too, though, is, in the month of October, while the school board is meeting to discuss budget, we certainly hope that
Yeah.
folks from this group will be there to listen, to ask questions. So the budget that you're getting from the board on the 20th, hopefully you'll have seen and have been looking at and have been talking about anyway, so it's,
Yeah.
and
It's
we'll
not a
prob-
surprise.
Right, so
Yeah,
it'll
so the
probably be
next one
similar
is
to-
the 18th.
And you might have some questions for the council budget
It's-
too, that's.
Well, so, and I'm assuming the same thing will be happening on the town council side.
Yeah, we just don't have.
So really, for the month of October, none of us should have any plans to do anything other than go to meetings for the school in the town.
Can I make a request about these schedules?
I mean, October's over, just.
Could we post these schedules for the school and when the town's ready on
Thursday is when
on
they
the
start
budget
discussing
committee's
the budget.
web page or?
Sure.
Because if
we
somebody
just-
wants to find out about what the budget committee's doing, and we want to go say, hey, when is the school having their meetings, when is the town having their meetings? We
Well,
can
what I
attend
did
these
last
other
year is
meetings.
I think I combined them and then color coded
Yeah.
them. Or
But to
Ed-
put it on the
or Ed did.
website so other people can
Yeah.
attend.
We should ask Kathy to leave it posted up at the library and at the town hall so people can come in and see it as well.
another poster.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, the 18th and the 25th are when the school board's starting there's a presentation on the 18th and the work session on the 25th.
25th and then
And on
And it
November
goes
8th.
on and
8th.
on and on.
November 8th, yeah, so.
And November 15th is when they do their final battle royale before they hand it off to us.
So pick a date to.
Sure. Do we like Monday nights? Seems like we do.
Monday's better.
So the 26th would be the first one, and then the 3rd. And then we'll discuss on the 26th how many more we want to schedule. I know, I can't make.
You want the first one to be the 26th?
I would recommend that. That's my preference.
November 26th.
So maybe we could do the 4th. Do Tuesday the 4th? I know I asked them the 3rd. This would be in,
Tuesdays are out for me, unless it's, crisis mode, whatever, but
Thursday the 8th?
I think that might be, is that a
The
budget,
school
school board meeting?
it's too late.
Probably moving nights.
Is it Thursday? I may have to come late or miss it. Which is,
But November 19th or the 26th was what you?
yeah, the 26th and then the 3rd of December for the second meeting. We should probably just set aside Monday nights and,
Yep.
and then we'll schedule a Saturday if we want to.
If you want the other one, it's at least the 10th, and then the 17th is a questionable, I think, starts to get, but it is what it is. So figure those four.
So what are you doing, the 24th, the 3rd, and what?
26th.
26th.
11, 26, 12, 3, 12,
And
10.
on the 26th,
and
Gary, we'll
possibly-
have this town overview. That way you're not missing anything new.
No, yeah,
If that's
as long
okay.
as you don't care if there's any questions that I can't answer, it's fine. And Steve, I'm assuming will be here. so
Yeah,
it's
he would
fine.
be doing the presentation.
11/26,
Unless Phil wants to take over.
12/3.
12/10, 12/17.
It sort of sounds like if the
Exactly.
17th is not, that may be the 15th is the Saturday type of thing, if people don't
both.
want to push into Christmas week.
Okay.
So I would sort of throw 12/15 down as a Saturday possible. Because if you're not done by 12/15, 12/17, you're blowing the whole
Just
cycle.
give warning that those could be hard for me, or if we can do in the morning, I'll schedule what I need to, but I have nobody to cover, I have to close my business in order to hit a Saturday, yeah. So, let's work as best we can, and I'll do what I can to work around
Do we
that.
want to do 6:30s or 7 o'clock?
I'd rather do 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Earlier.
Sounds good to me. I just wanted to double check so we don't.
You're the man on that one.
Well, my wife likes it too. She's like, "When are you gonna be home?" I'm like, "Whenever you ask that, it's a long meeting, so don't ask it anymore."
Always 6:30,
No, Kathy posted it correctly. I appreciate that.
yes, she did.
All right, so the August 27th minutes. Great job again.
Yeah, I thought those were
Yeah.
fine.
And you got them to me like the next morning. I was like, "Did she go to sleep?" I know, but it was fast. It was good.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Linda.
Second.
Thank you, Gary. Any things of substance? If there's little changes like misspellings of names, whatever, you can
Yeah,
share
if
them
you want
now.
to take
or-
the S off Simon, sometimes it's just Simon, and then it's in there as Simons twice and Simon twice.
But you can call me.
Yeah, you can tell me.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's anything else. I don't know, there's red ink over there.
Yeah, I just had, if everybody else understands it, maybe my lack of, in the second paragraph that said Matt Angel pointed, and
What
I don't want to
page?
delay this. Page 1, second paragraph under point 2. Matt Angel pointed out the 1,360,000 listed under the general fund is unspendable. I'm not sure unspendable,
Did he mean
It's an
reserved?
encumbered fund balance.
Right, because
well,
it's,
it's not
that's
even
the,
uncovered, because that's supposed to be
that's
what
the
the
purchase price.
unencumbered.
That's the purchase price. That's what we bond, that's what we were supposed to bond for the public works.
It is a reserved fund balance, something like that.
So he's, like, it's unspendable because it's actually not available. It's listed there, but it's
You
not
mean the
available.
1,360,000 covers the 1,200,000 something that we're gonna pay
Yeah.
over 10 years?
Yeah.
And who's on first with that shell game? Okay. If everybody's happy. And then there, a couple lines later, it says, there actually is no cash to back up the unspendable amount.
Should be a
Right.
better word than unspendable.
I'm
but do you remember
okay
how
if
he
you're
said-
okay, but as I was reading that, I'm just
Unspendable is a little.
going.
Well, he addressed that a little bit tonight in that
No, I'm-
actual cash in the bank is different than a fund balance. Chase? No?
I mean, I don't,
Yeah,
if I had a
you did.
better
Yeah,
word,
you
I
can-
think
I
it's
know, I'm waiting
solution.
for Russ.
The easier way to put that, if you want to change it, is there's no cash to back up the 1.3 million.
It's
Sure.
a IOU
That
in
sounds
my
like a good
pocket.
change.
Okay?
Did you hear that?
1.36. She's got good ears.
Look at that.
That was pretty much, because Steve's gonna check on whether we can do a warrant article, but that had nothing to do with last meeting anyway.
Yeah, I know. He tried to dumb it down.
And then, one.
I was just about to call a vote.
Sorry,
It's okay.
if it makes sense to everybody, I'm fine. Under number 8, page 4, the second paragraph, where it starts, Mr. Simon, which I'm fine with that one. But if you look at the second sentence, he suggested this discussion be held after agenda members had attended September workshop.
Budget
Assuming
numbers.
committee.
Budget.
City meeting members, yeah.
Budget.
That's good. Yep.
There's a few spelling things in there, but
Okay, so I'm not a total idiot, okay.
Thank you, Russ. All right, all those in favor of the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All those in favor? We scheduled our next meeting, so I think we're done. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Adjourned at 8:39 PM.